I tell every CEO / president / founder I work with, your culture will be a reflection of your consciousness, period. I've never not seen that be the case. Whatever it is that matters to you sets the tone here. We will all feel it. And what are your gifts will be the gifts of this culture, and what are your challenges will be the challenges of this culture. And to the extent that you are unaware of your challenges and they become blind spots, will become the most difficult parts of this culture. So we need you to be aware of your own self.
Diana Chapman is a renowned advisor to some of the most innovative leaders in the world and a founding partner of the Conscious Leadership Group. She's also one of the co-authors of the best-selling book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. In this conversation, we discuss the magic and power that can happen when we start to infuse awareness, openness, and play into the workplace.
Hey, you guys, we're human, and humans are messy. And we're just all trying to learn. We're all just doing the best we know how. Can we make space for the mess? Can we let it be okay to experiment? Can we let it be okay to be uncomfortable? And can we play? Get in a playfulness about all this and not take any of it too seriously. And as we start to do that, we start letting go of the whole good, bad, right, wrong, righteousness thing. That starts just make curiosity, openness, and learning the field in which we're all hanging out in.
It's Diana's experience that when we open ourselves and make space for play, we can gain access to a deeper wisdom that can accelerate creativity and the outcomes we desire.
There was somebody in our group who's been a CEO for 20 years, and he said, I just saw us do in one afternoon what took me and my team in the past 18 months to create. That's quite miraculous. And that's what's possible if people can really open up, get curious, get real, and be available for wisdom that's here, right here in the moment, that can guide us all. One might argue that's more of a through me state.
We also talk about Diana's recent decision to step out of the day-to-day operations of the Conscious Leadership Group and open to new possibilities that uplift humanity.
I've been feeling for a while that I'm not feeling as alive as I used to feel so alive. Even I was working hard, but I was passionate about it. I loved it. And I noticed recently that it was starting to feel heavy. That's how I would describe it. There was a heaviness that I never felt before. I know when I'm off track, I lose that sense of aliveness.
The Conscious Leadership Group is promoting a new game in business. Are you ready?
We are saying leaders' job is to say, what is the game you want to play? And what are the rules of the game? And not think of that as something controlling, but really actually a way to create more cohesiveness so that we are all on the same page so that we can be free.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Hey, Diana, how are you?
I am really well and very excited to be with you, Scott.
Likewise. You know, one of my co-founders gave me the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership about 5 years ago. And it was really coming to me at a really important inflection point in my life where I realized kind of the way I was doing things wasn't working anymore. And I found a lot of the ideas in that book very inspiring for my own transformational journey. So thank you for writing it, and just excited to be able to spend this time with you. I think where I'd love to start the conversation is when we got on the call, you mentioned to me that you were feeling some liberation, some discombobulation, and kind of entering a really exciting time. And I wanted to see if you'd be willing to share more about what's going on in your life right now.
Yeah. I just had my yearly offsite with my team over the weekend. And during our time together, it became really clear to me and others that it was time for me to really let go of being responsible for much of much of the business, the sales, the marketing, the products, things like that are going on at the Conscious Leadership Group, and that it's time for me to go. And I'm not going to leave CLG, but I'm going to leave all of these roles that I've been playing for the last decade, that have really built this business up to where it is, and make space for others to come in and put my attention more on a call toward focusing on a very niche group of global leaders that I want to work with.
And how did this insight come into your experience? Like, I'd be curious to learn more about what that felt like.
Well, I've been feeling for a while that I'm not feeling as alive as I used to feel so alive. Even I was working hard, but I was passionate about it. I loved it. And I noticed recently that it was starting to feel heavy. That's how I would describe it. There was a heaviness that I never felt before. And I know when I'm off track, I lose that sense of aliveness. So I call it sometimes the whole body yes. I wasn't feeling quite that whole body yes. And so I started to take a look at what's going on here, and that I really wanted more support to come in. And then my co-founder, Jim Dethmer, was meditating. And he came out of it and he said, I think we should just cut you cold turkey. I just had this thought, and I'll come in and be more involved and you get out. And every part of me just went, oh, that's it. That's exactly how I want to do it. Just cut it. And so we told the group, I'm going to leave. And we had a couple more days for everybody to talk about what's it going to look like without me there. And it was really fun. And the amount of aliveness that came back into the company, it made me realize probably might have even been good to leave a little earlier. And I trust everything has its timing, but the new curiosity, the new energy of the other leaders in the organization really rose, and I feel excited about what's going to happen. And I have to be really unattached to be able to do this, because otherwise, I could feel the part of me that would get scared about letting go of my baby. And so I trust it will thrive, and I'm learning it's not my business. I need to be mindful of what is mine to tend to.
And so at this point, you have kind of a high level thesis of where you might be headed, but in some ways it's a little bit of a jumping without a parachute.
Yeah. It's like, who do I need to be to go into this next era? What do I need to let go of? What kind of support do I need? How do I'm imagining I need to get more vulnerable and needy to be able to do what I want to do next, which might seem a little counterintuitive, but so I'm really looking at how do I express my needs even more?
Is that in reference to kind of like asking for help for things?
Yeah. Asking for help, asking for, will you help me? Can you make an introduction? I can have some trouble sometimes of being needy, and so I can see if I really want to do what I want to do next, I'm going to need to ask for a lot of people to help me out and get me connected to different people, and offer up support in ways that usually I would go, I'm fine, I'm good. So I'm excited about opening that part of myself.
Sounds like a really good growth opportunity.
Yeah.
If there's resistance there.
Yes.
I think a lot of people probably hear this and, like myself, are quite surprised, because Conscious Leadership Group, from my perspective, is just getting started. I think kind of the global shift in consciousness is the most imperative thing, in my opinion. And, infusing it in the business context, just the power of that is immense. And so I think what a lot of people probably wonder is, how do you develop that trust in that inner knowing to make such a swift decision, with some type of insight, like maybe it's time? Because it doesn't really sound like there was much of a deliberation period.
Well, I have been wondering for a while, how do I make sure we get the right people in here so that I can get out more? There has been a curiosity about that. Um, and there's been a place in which it's like, my baby, a lot of founders, my baby, I need
Mm,
to tend to my baby. And I think I did this actually the same exact thing with my husband. I was a stay at home mom and I was really into taking care of my kids. And at some point, when they were right around that adolescent stage, we decided that I would get out and become the breadwinner for the first time in our marriage, and that my husband would switch and he would be with the kids. So I have an experience of what this is like to completely reorient, let go of the babies, give them over to somebody else, and not know what's going to happen exactly, but have to really deeply trust. And
mm,
it worked out great then. So I feel like I'm in exactly the same place. Like this, our organization feels like it's becoming an adolescent, and my gifts aren't really here to help empower that next level of leadership in the way that I think other leaders can come in and do that. And I think people are so used to me being such a decision maker when we were younger, which was an important part of, I think, that stage of development. But now we need to retrain everybody that you don't have to go to Diana anymore. This is, everybody can own this. And so sometimes I think it's smart to just make a good quick cut around not making yourself accessible so people can just start swimming on their own.
turn off Slack, away message in the email.
Right? They
Sometimes these are
actually,
beautiful things.
the team has made a channel in which I am not on, in which they're going to all talk about a lot of things, and I won't even get to look. So I think that's going to be very helpful in my just cutting it off.
Nice. How do you think about approaching kind of this liminal period of exploration and what's next?
Well, I think it's so different for each person in each situation, because sometimes it's nice to just sit in the nothingness and just be quiet and listen and trust the timing of that. And sometimes it's just a quick, here's what's next. And you just take the leap of
Mm.
faith and go, and everything in between. And so I'm not sure there's any particular way one might uh, go after that. But I've coached a lot of my own clients, especially a lot of CEOs, in helping them let go and then just be for a while.
Mm.
And I've also coached some in just letting go and going right off to another company, and they're starting right up with something else. So all kinds of possibilities there.
Well, I guess for your personal circumstance, is there something that feels like a good thing to lean into to help you
Mhm.
navigate this?
Yes, a couple of things. One, pay attention to any place where I'm trying to control the feelings of others, especially people being disappointed. And notice if there's any way I'm trying to manage that is a really important part of me getting clear of what is mine to do and not do moving forward. Two, um, I have a really clear sense of knowing in my body what's a yes and what's a no, and being able to really honor that and listen to that, even when part of me is scared to follow through with that. Those are two big pieces for me. And um, I think I care so much about the people I've been with, and some of them I need to say it's time to make space from each other. And I'm going to have to grieve a lot and feel some heartbreak about that. And so letting myself go into that deep heartbreak is another really important piece.
Mm. Well, it sounds like it'll be an interesting period. And yeah, I appreciate you just honoring those parts of yourself. I was, as I was kind of just learning a little bit more about your backstory from other sources than the book, how did you end up focusing on the uplifting consciousness within the business context?
Okay. um, well, so ever since I was a kid, I was really interested in what's true and why do I see so many people as adults when I was a kid? Like, why does everybody look so scared? What's going on? So
Mm.
that was always my interest is how do we address this fear people are in and help them come back into a state of trust. And I started doing that working with Gay and Katie Hendricks of the Hendricks Institute with just general relationships. I was a relationship coach, worked a lot with couples and individuals. And then at some point, I started working with some business leaders and I thought, oh, wow, this is a good energetic match for me. They seem to like my pace and my pressure and my just my style worked really well with that population. And I thought, wow, I could probably impact more people if I was able to go into businesses and help whole teams rather than just these, one-on-one or one-on-two clients here throughout my day. And so, and I figured out how to start to translate a lot of what some people would call like the woo into the business world in a way that was digestible and didn't feel threatening. And I had a knack for that. And so, for all of those reasons, I entered into the business world.
Nice. And that was actually something I was curious about asking you. Like, is that process of translating these deep concepts, is that just come extremely natural to you? Is there a particular creative process that you found helpful?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think it does come naturally to me. I like making things really practical, and I went out into the world and tried all of these different tools on with all these different teachers and mentors, even before the internet when you had to travel across the country to go sit with somebody. And I was particularly interested in the tools that apply, like I could use right away, I could remember, that were repeatably able to help me shift. And and so that was always of interest to me. So I gathered a lot of those from other people and then figured out how to just change the language slightly. So and partially I had to change the language because when I first brought them into some of them, people were like, I got to fire you because you sound like you're talking a different language. So, so some of that was required for me to keep my clients was how do I speak their language in a way that makes sense to them? And maybe I might say that might have been somewhat drawn by like I want you to keep me. So how do I learn to adapt how I'm being so that you're going to welcome me here? And that was easy then to figure out what that language was and share those practical tools.
And you've been at this with Conscious Leadership Group for a while, and I know we're at a kind of a new phase. But one thing I'd be curious is like, how are the needs of businesses and leaders different today than maybe they were a decade ago when you got started?
Great question. I think the new generation of young leaders coming into the workplace are demanding a different life than
Mm.
the life their parents had. They are not willing to sacrifice their well being in the ways that their parents might have. They want to enjoy, they care about culture, they care about connection, they care about experiences outside of work. They seem to care more about creating more well-being for their own selves. And so they seem less tolerant of the status quo, so that leaders are having to say, okay, how do we adapt? Because you're important. We need you. In fact, we need you really badly because you are the real innovators here since things are changing so quick. So, how do we create an attractive culture that you're interested in being a part of? So, I think conscious cultures are much more attractive to that younger group of leaders.
I agree, and it's very fascinating. My wife actually runs a recruiting firm, specifically for chiefs of staff, and she's actually starting to see people come to her and ask for executives who are on the consciousness path. And to me, that's, well, I think it's a really cool opportunity. Um, but it's just indicative of exactly what you said, where, people are starting to view, um, yeah, just the function of work to be more encompassing than just the way to make money, and that's to me very exciting.
My team and I onboarded about 2,500 new employees at Asana, which was one of our clients for many years. I probably onboarded at least 1,000 of them and got to meet, every one of those that came on. I asked often, like, what brought you here? And I would say about half of them would tell me I turned down better pay, better, uh, goodies, free this or free that, free even childcare. I turned down things from other companies to come here because I wanted a conscious culture, because I don't want the drama, because I want to be able to be, in a place where people can be honest and revealing and feel their feelings and have, all parts welcome here. And so that was really shocking to hear. Some, like, especially some of some people took half of the salary in the Bay Area,
Wow.
because of that. So it really let me know how important it was to that, late 20s, crowd.
That's awesome. That's a very cool anecdote. And yeah, one that I haven't heard before. And so thank you for sharing that. I think one question that a lot of people have, and I know we've talked about this in a prior conversation, is, the founder has done the work. The founder's doing the inner work. They're prioritizing their own consciousness. And then they're kind of trying to figure out, how do I imbue these concepts into an organization where there's just an entire spectrum of people at varying degrees of interest and experience. And I know that's a probably a pretty loaded question, but like, I'd be curious, like, how you help people think about that. How do they kind of transcend their own consciousness journey to make it more of a company culture, a company way of being?
Well, I tell every CEO slash president slash founder I work with, your culture will be a reflection of your consciousness, period. I've never not
Mm.
seen that be the case. It was your vision. Or it is your vision now. It is you, whatever it is that matters to you sets the tone here, and we will all feel it. And what are your gifts will be the gifts of this culture, and what are your challenges will be the challenges of this culture. And to the extent that you are unaware of your challenges and they become blind spots, will become the most difficult parts of this culture. So we need you to be aware of your own self, and we need you to be able to work with these things so that they don't have as much negative impact on the rest of the people involved, um, because those decision rights at that very top will come down through the whole thing. And people seem to get that. So we always say, leader with the most decision rights goes first. You show everybody that you're doing your work and let them see the results and make them interested in participating because they like what they see, not because they're forced to follow some conscious culture training program. We really want people to be inspired.
Is there any good examples of leaders in particular that seem to kind of indoctrinate a cultural shift based on their own transformation that you can think of?
Well, I would say Dustin Muskovitz at Asana, he was already on his way before I ever showed up, in my opinion. He was already a pretty aware guy. But when we came in, he was one of the few leaders that came and repeated the course. Like when we would teach it to other teams, like he'd come back in and go, let me have another round and
Mm.
let me keep diving into this. And, I watched him get more and more present as time went on. And his culture was already doing a pretty good job, but it even got more exquisite, especially at his executive team level. Like they just were like a beautiful example of a no drama team, amongst themselves. And, in his scores, like his Glassdoor scores spoke to how much he had done his work, just like these rave reviews about the beauty of his leadership. So he's one example. Let me think of somebody who like really had to turn around a culture, because that's maybe what you're also asking for, like who came in and really changed it because of who they were. Is that
Well, if nobody comes to mind immediately, it's okay. One thing I was curious about though, as we're talking about this, so one of my friends took the conscious leadership year-long coaching thing, and he talked very specifically about the field that was created and how that field had an impact. And I'd be curious to learn more about what he's talking about.
Yeah. So I think one of the first things is we really like to set up, hey, you guys, we're human and humans are messy. And we're just all trying to learn. We're all just doing the best we know how. Can we make space for the mess? Can we let it be okay to experiment? Can we let it be okay to be uncomfortable? And can we play? Get in a playfulness about all this and not take any of it too seriously. And as we start to do that, we start letting go of the whole good, bad, right, wrong, righteousness thing that starts just make curiosity, openness, and learning the field in which we're all hanging out in. So I think that's what he's pointing to.
Yeah, that's cool. I wasn't sure if you guys, I study in this Taoist tradition, and we literally build chi fields. In fact, I built one before this conversation. And so I wasn't sure if it was something more metaphysical or, the intentions of the container, which is just a form of that. So,
Well,
very cool.
I would say, as the facilitator, I am also, like you, very intentional around my own field in me and the field I want to hold. And my team, I think that's one of the things as practitioners at the Conscious Leadership Group, that's all we're in devotion to, is that field. And when we come together, all we're doing is putting attention on, can you hold that field? Can you hold that level of awareness and an openness? And so we are all very intentional about that. And I think a big part of what we believe does happen is that there's a transmission from one person to another that happens in the sharing of that field, whether that be conscious or unconscious. But that's a really important part of what we do, and maybe really at the core of everything we do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I found myself thinking about how often when the leader of an organization is kind of taking internal leadership, the things and people around them shift automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the coolest thing to witness, and it doesn't even need to be through the content,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yes. And we have a lot of people say, I need to hire you. My executive team's really a mess. I need you to work with them. And we go, well, we're not going to work with them. We're going to work with you. And when you shift, they start to shift. And that's pretty reliably what happens. So that seems odd. Some people are like, what are you talking about? It's not me, it's them. And we say, well, you are the creator of this reality that is them. How are you creating them that way? And we start to explore that.
Well, that's a very I totally experienced that in my marriage, by the way, which is also another just a great place to put all this into practice. With that reality kind of concept that you just mentioned, one thing I was curious to ask you about is the acknowledgement of how Hal Dwalskin,
Hal Dwoskin, uh-huh.
Hal Dwalskin of Sedona Method, and guiding you into the ASME experience. And so I would just be curious if you could share more about kind of what that was in reference to.
Yeah. Hale's a wonderful non-dual teacher in which he's asking people to really take a look at how we're holding on, and could we let go, and when, and could we particularly let go of the mind and how it's wanting to be right about how it sees things. And so through the Sedona method, he was guiding me into a practice in which I really just got to sit in, whoa, this is just a big open field of isness that has a heart. It's not so much of a personal heart, it has more of a universal heart that is just profoundly free. And I love his models so much. And encourage people to go learn more about the Sedona method. He's so generous in sharing all of that with the world more broadly.
Yeah, I definitely want to learn more about it. And I find that just the high level kind of life to me, by me, through me, as one of the kind of simplest, most intuitive ways to describe shifts in consciousness and states of being. People
Yes,
just get it.
I agree. I love that model so much that we got that model from Michael Beckwith, who used it as a spiritual model he was teaching through his church. And we thought the model applied to leadership just as equally, and to how we use the drama triangle. So we're grateful that he initiated that.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. If you like what you hear, let me know by clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and responding with a comment around something that you found interesting in the conversation so far. In addition to these videos, I do a lot of writing on the exploration of consciousness and my own personal revelations in my newsletter called Consciousness: The Doorway to Human Evolution. To receive these updates and more, all you need to do is simply head to the link in the description below and you'll be added to the community of 20,000 plus consciousness explorers receiving weekly ideas and inspiration in their inbox. I look forward to hearing from you there. Now let's get back to the show. One of the other things, and I feel like this is so amazing for me because I'm just getting to ask you all of the questions that I have. I guess that's what a podcast is about. I loved, I was listening to the conversation with you and Jim and Gay Hendricks and the other gentleman, and you guys talked about how you prioritize or kind of built conscious leadership around play, fun, and aliveness. Like that's the function that is kind of leading the charge. And I'm just curious, what does that look like? I imagine a lot of people hear that and they go, yeah, okay, but we need to make money, or I need to make my investors happy, or I need to do this and I need to do that. And it just seems like an unrealistic thing, an unrealistic approach. And I would just be curious, how does that express? What does that look like?
Okay, I love this topic. To me, I think this is like one of the most important things that's missing so much in the world. So, research suggests that all mammals learn best through play. And if you ask children, what's your favorite part of school? Most of them will say, what? Recess. Why? Because they're learning. They're learning there. And I think it's tragic how much play has been taken out of most school systems. It's like sit down, straighten up, get serious, let's focus. And the research just says that's just not the way we learn best. We learn so much faster in a playful mindset or a playful way of being. So I'll give you an example. We were hanging out as our team here for our offsite, and we started to talk about how it's just we're mammals, and we gather with other mammals, and mammals actually. We were talking about trauma and how are we going to support people who've gone through trauma, and we were talking about in trauma, mammals tend to want to come together and physically be close to each other, be together, and we started to joke that we are each other's mammals. And at one point, somebody goes, "I can just feel some part of me that's feeling scared." That you guys don't really value me. And so I said, so do you have a question? And she said, yeah, do you value me? And we all went mammal, and we all started going, "Hoo, hoo, hoo." It was just silly. It was just playful. But she just popped open in the playfulness of a bunch of people acting like other mammals in celebration of her. Because we could have all talked and we could have said, of course we value you and blah, blah, blah. But just the moment of play, she got it. And there was nothing to be said. It was so fast and quick. And so I think a lot of people think that play is a distraction from getting stuff done. And my experience is play helps everything go faster because you're open. You're open in a playful spirit versus the more serious things get, the more people start to close down. It's not funny. And as soon as it's not funny, most of us get into threat, and then play isn't as accessible. So I'm a big fan of whatever's going on, can we play with it?
Mm.
Including, can we play with serious? This is really serious, you guys. We got to get really serious about everything right now. And like, can we even play with that? Because it doesn't, like, serious can still be here, but can we relax it a little bit so that serious doesn't have to be a threat? So
Mm.
it's I would argue this is one of my superpowers, is how I think I'm helpful to a lot of people is we're not trying to get rid of anything that's going on here. Not trying to make it a problem. We want to play with it, learn from it. And then from there, find ways to move past those challenges that are keeping us dragging from what we really want to be making happen in the world.
I think Chief Play Officer might be a popular title in the next decade,
I think
hopefully.
I think that's absolutely going to happen. I think that there is going to be a lot of how do we relax and just get open and have some fun here.
It is a really cool idea because I feel like, spirituality high level is like the last frontier of entering in the corporate culture. And you'll probably see a lot of companies like, oh, we'll have a meditation room and we'll have mindfulness, but it's still a compartmentalized experience, right? Where it's like, we have our 20-minute mindfulness thing. And this integration of freeness, of openness, with what you're already doing through a container like play, to me is really, really compelling.
Yeah. And I like that you use the word compelling, because drama is compelling. Drama is very compelling. The biggest blockbusters are who's got, have the biggest hero, villain, and victim in them, and we'll all go pay our money and make that the number one hit because it's compelling. And so what we've learned is play is as much, if not more, compelling than drama, and it's one of the few things it is. And so if you want to drop the drama, you've got to figure out how to play, because that will win. If you look at TV shows like I think like Whose Line Is It Anyway is an improv show, that's fun, it's playful. That can compete with the dramas, but hardly anything else can.
I see drama as like such a emphasized word with CLG and the marketing and the website and the book. And it's just funny because it's not really a word that I think about much. And I'd be curious, like, how did you land on that, and what does drama mean to you in this context?
Yeah, it's fun because we're writing a new book, and we're thinking about like drama-free teams. And what we're realizing is most people go, I don't have drama. I don't have any drama at work, right? And then we go, well, like, are you not talking to some team members, honestly? Yeah. Are you gossiping? Yeah. Are you going home to your partner and bitching about your, manager? Yeah. Are you resentful of some of the work you have to do? Yeah. That's all drama. And so drama is, we define it as anything where you're nanning in any kind of repetitive way. Is drama. Anything where we're like, oh my God, here we are again. We have these communication issues again. We're being siloed. This happens over and over again. That's drama. We have some issue that recycles over and over again, and it wastes our creative energy having to manage it. We call that drama.
Yeah, a word that comes up for me that I am just making the connection with is rumination.
Yeah.
Those inner cycles, the inner drama of like, did I said the wrong thing? I did this. And you're just like kind of spinning, and you're exactly right. Like, that's diverting life force and, mental space for something that could be far more productive.
Yeah, exactly. And let me give you an example. There are some things in the business world that are just always going to be tough. For example, in the manufacturing business, we have some of our clients are in that business. One of the things they all share is they all struggle with temporary help on the manufacturing floor. That's a difficult thing. How do we get enough people in here to help make these products? Well, they think that they shouldn't be having that problem. And then they think, and because they think that, if they're always in a struggle with, oh, we're at the effect of, that's another way you're in drama. I'm at the effect of this. We have to deal with this, and this feels heavy. So I said, can we gamify this? Let's just know in your business, this is always hard. It's never going to get easy. That's just the way it is. So rather than try to argue with the way it is, how could you gamify the way it is? How could you have
Mm.
fun with this and know it's not a problem, that this is a struggle? And then that reorients. So now we're not in drama with a lack of temporary help. Now we're in what can we learn about how to um, gamify that challenge in a way that helps us keep learning and growing? So there's, I could give 1,000 examples of these things that are happening in businesses that people think shouldn't be as challenging as they are. And so they're in drama with it.
Yeah, it sounds like at the core you're fighting reality as it is,
Right.
and which is a sure recipe for suffering. And so it sounds like the acknowledgement perhaps creates space to figure out a way to enjoy it.
Yeah. Like if this is always going to be hard, how can we have fun with this always being hard instead of, suffering? There is drama. Drama has suffering in it. There's like you can feel it in the body. It's it's got some kind of heavy or closed or tight or frustrated in a not so open, curious way. And so what we're saying is we still might have all the same challenges and issues, but we just get to choose to be with them from a different place. And the biggest payoff of that is we use less energy to address them, which means we don't come home so burnt out. We're more available for other parts of our lives, like our families and our hobbies and the nature outside and things like that, which we think most people want.
I would agree. I think kind of like as I reflect upon a lot about, some of the things that we've talked about, I think a kind of a key acknowledgement um, that often happens when people work on their consciousness is the recognition that step function changes in your life and business occur through insight. They occur through creativity, enhanced creativity, and they don't occur through kind of just like more to-do list action item going, getting more done, get working 13 hours instead of 12 hours, like, that just kind of idea. And it sounds like at the core, it's like a lot of these ideas come back to opening up the aperture for those step function changes.
Yeah. I'm not a former business person, but over the last 4 days when our team was together and we were really redefining who we were going to be and how things were going to change. And there was somebody in our group who's been a CEO for 20 years. And he said, I just saw us do in one afternoon what took me and my team in the past 18 months to create. That's that's quite miraculous. And that's what's possible if people can really open up and get curious, get real, and be available for the wisdom that's here, right here in the moment, that can guide us all. One might argue that's more of a through me state. Um, and it was really, in I've never been in that experience before where that much happened with that much cohesiveness amongst a team. And so what I'm excited about is that didn't take a lot of work. What it took was a lot of
Mm.
presence. And I'm interested in how much more nonlinear we might all start creating, and how much it might be outside of the time and space that we have been used to, that we think has been required in the past to create. Those are some of the things I'm really interested in, is
Mm.
the efficiency of creation that happens when people are in a much more open and relaxed state.
Have you found any kind of personal experimentation with that type of paradigm that seems like you want to go deeper on?
Yeah, well, I've done this a lot with teams, which is I like to use this concept that we call wonder, and and training people to sit in a state of wonder. And so we say most of you all are used to creating from these minds of yours that have experience, and you're like thinking and solving from here. And what we think would be a really valuable skill for you to have is, could you ask a really big question that is bigger than you can answer? And then
Mm.
could you imagine like the question is like a big bubble and you sit inside of the question and get dumb. We say the mantra here is duh, duh, which is a super vulnerable place for most smarty pants who are running companies, right? Because
Mm.
I don't know what that's like to just be in the unknown. It's uncomfortable. But if we can get people to relax into that, all kinds of ahas come from something that they can access outside of themselves.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. It reminds me of a practice I found highly effective in my own experience, which is just writing down whatever question I have about anything in my life before I go to sleep. And then just trusting that the information will enter my awareness as when and as needed. And as that starts to happen, there starts to be such an immense trust in it that it just becomes the logical thing to do. And it's amazing. I mean, it's an amazing thing when you get out of your own way.
Yeah, and you're pointing to the thing. It is requires a lot of trust, and it also requires a lot of non-attachment to the timing. You have to
Mm.
really trust the timing of it. And people get scared. That's really threatening because, like, wait a minute, we have deadlines and we have things to do, and people can get threatened by the need to create fast. And sometimes that is true, but you can, you can just trust, like it'll show up here. Just settle in, enjoy the ride, and that's, I think, that piece that you said about trust is key.
It really is. It really is the doorway to everything else. I study in this tradition called Ren Shui, and they have a very specific process of opening the heart. Um, and there's kind of 5 qualities. There's trust, openness, love, gratitude, and gongjing, which is deep respect and humility.
Mm.
And the idea is to simultaneously build and experience those qualities and also remove whatever is encumbering those qualities by noticing your patterns in your everyday experience. And what I've discovered is that if you focus on the trust, those other properties emerge naturally, right? It's like trust is the linchpin that allows openness, that allows greater unconditional love, that allows greater reverence, and all of these things. And so it's just like, all these religions point to faith, right? Like that's such a kind of principal concept. And there's a reason,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason to why that's such a perennial idea.
That fifth one, is it gun chain?
Gongjing. It's
Gong.
a Chinese word, and it basically means deep respect and humility. And it's kind of in reference to the relationship with the universe.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask you a question. I think I'm in that quite a bit here just since I made the announcement that I'm going to step away here and start opening up to this new vision I have of what I might create. And I'm noticing even right now, I feel this subtle swirl in my belly that feels to me like, oh, you've got a lot to learn here.
Mm.
It's not critical, but there is like a humbleness of, there's something you don't know that you don't know that you're going to need to keep paying attention to, like the intelligence of fear that would say, um, pay attention, there's something that needs to get learned.
Mm.
Is that similar to that state, or is it different?
I think the word that's coming up for me right now is just when you have deep humility, like humility is the word.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have deep humility, it creates an openness to receiving.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's kind of
Yes.
like, to give a specific example, I had a lot of arrogance about how much I knew about spirituality and like all these things that I had learned um, in my experience. And what I realized was like that actually blocked me from receiving,
Yeah.
from like my heart was not fully open to receiving from all different places, including, my teachers. And the gong jing is like, it's this idea that you're almost like an infant.
Yes. Okay.
You're an infant in
Yeah.
the experience, and you love that you're an infant.
Yes. Okay. So for me, when I'm in my infant here, there is a little bit of a swirl in the belly that is this. I'm learning, and it feels very young and vulnerable. And I think I'd find with a lot of people that I coach that this quality of the feeling and um, that unknown does create a discomfort in the belly that people don't
Mm.
want to be with. And it's what keeps people from being willing to be more in humility is the willingness to sit in the I don't know and let the body feel whatever it feels when it sits there.
I mean, I totally believe that. It's not a natural thing that we're taught to go into.
No.
It's like the complete opposite. It's like, oh, I'm going to avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I woke up with it, this feeling this morning without any thoughts. Sometimes I have this feeling and I think, oh, I'm scared about X, Y, Z, but it was just the feeling, and I was like, oh wow, I'm just in this vulnerability right here. Just this
Mm.
is I think this humility of okay, I've got lots to learn, and one of the things that I'm hoping is that people who are working together have more courage to say I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and then well let's find out. And I tell this story that I was coaching a team at Genentech who was responsible for buying up um, other biotech companies to get their science to help support their being able to make good medicines for people, and that they were just about ready. There were about 7 of them in the room, and they were deciding that they were going to buy a $50 million company for their science. And we're like, okay, we're all in agreement, and they'd been practicing conscious leadership. And so one guy goes, all right, I just got to say, like, I feel some scare in my belly as we're deciding this. And somebody else says, oh, I'm so glad you said it. I felt it too. And then next, everyone went around and they all felt it. So it was like, okay, now we know that the intelligence of fear says there's something we need to learn here before we make this decision. And so
Mm.
somebody said, I have a feeling we need to go back and ask. There was one test they did. I want to just go back and make sure that the results were, a certain way. That test I'm a little unclear about. So they did, and it turns out that it was unclear, the information, and it wasn't as accurate, the science. And they made a decision that did not buy the company, and realized, like, had we bought it, we would have probably wasted $50 million. And it all just came from people being willing to be uncomfortable first and foremost, and to be revealed, like, hey, I'm scared, I don't know something here, but something I think we have to pay attention to. So I'm really excited about more of that level of vulnerability as we all learn to collaborate in whatever creative teams we're in. um, because I think that's like going to help us access these new systems and models that are wanting to come in to support us and creating a more just, harmonious, peaceful, playful world.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's this idea of kind of like experience near. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but experience near is describing like what is happening in the now, and versus like, how's your day? Like, oh, it was good. I did this, I did that, I did that. It's like a story versus like, it's kind of in the now. And I think as people become more tuned somatically, um, there'll be hopefully a level of comfort that develops that's becomes commonplace for people to just share like what they're experiencing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
including I'm angry. I feel
Mm,
angry. Something here does not serve me or the team. And grr, like I'm really excited about anger coming back into the workplace. That's just very open-hearted and not critical, but powerful and saying like we have to stop some of the stuff that's going on. And
mm,
also grieving, there's just so much to grieve. There are industries that are ending and there are companies that aren't going to make it, and sometimes there's just a vision of a first quarter earnings that didn't happen, and can we grieve and let go of what we hoped would be so that we can just be with the way it is. And emotional intelligence, I think, is another really really big piece that's coming in that and I'm excited. I think the young population, I'm watching like TikTok and videos that they're all making, and they're all like starting to role model like, instead of saying this, you would say and feel this. And I'm like, oh, there's a lot of mimicking that they're offering to one another around how can we be more authentic and feel more of our feelings with one another. So I'm very excited about the level of role modeling that's coming out that I think is pointing in a really beautiful direction.
yeah, I love that. Um, it's a really delicate thing. Also, I feel, something I'd love your quick thoughts on are like when I was running my last company, I didn't feel comfortable sharing my authenticity because I felt like people were so hypersensitive,
Mm.
and it was coming from a good place, but I felt like there was just such an indoctrination in the world of everyone being so sensitive.
Okay, well,
Um,
sensitive, in my opinion, mostly comes from people who want to be right. I'm right. You're not supposed to say that. I'm right. This isn't, I can't be in a state of trust. Or what is it? What do the people say? We need to have a place of trust here. I can't remember what the term is, but sensitivity is often I'm right and it's coming from a defended place.
oh, it's psychological safety.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
psychological
thinking
safety.
of?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I really want to go bust up the whole psychological safety
Oh
thing.
my God, me too. Because it basically means you can't be authentic,
Right. Well, and
is
it's
my
like I
experience of it.
well, most people are trying to source their safety from outside of themselves. So as long as I'm going to source safety from outside of myself, then I'm going to need to control these conditions in order to feel safe. That is not real safety. Safety is sourced from within. I'm always safe. You could go fuck you or say something, politically incorrect or whatever. I'm safe. And I may say, hey, hold on a minute, I don't enjoy that, but that's not going to affect my safety. That's an inside job. And I feel like that's a big um, shadow happening right now as we're trying to learn how to be more aware of different perspectives and worlds in one another. But we have to be careful about not going too far over into this other version of another control plan.
Totally. Well, it does seem like there's the kind of kindling with a lot of people doing their own inner work to start to maybe shift the way that some of these just the relationship that people have and with authenticity in the workplace, with sharing themselves. And it does seem like, yeah, like the leader has to go first with that.
So, in our new book, it's all going to be around exactly how do you create the conditions in which we all can be honest and authentic. And so, we talk about how you've got to get co committed. So, if you're saying, hey, team, let's co commit to revealing versus concealing. Let's co-commit to question our stories. Let's co-commit to feeling our feelings. Let's co-commit to candor. If we all co-commit to that and we make really clear agreements about how we're going to do that, then we have the conditions in which we can all be really authentic. But you probably were saying like, I'd like to be these things, but I haven't actually set up the team to play a game together in which we all agree on the rules. And that's what this book is going to be about. And we liken it to sports. If I say, hey, Scott, come on over, we're going to play basketball. And I'm going to say, no, here's the rules of the game. You got to dribble. And, if you want to point, you get this many points. And you wouldn't go, God, Diana, you're so controlling. Why are you being such a, clear, so clear on the rules of this game here? Just let us play however we want to play. Well, that's not going to really create something cohesive. So then we're going to argue like, well, I didn't know you have to dribble. Yeah, we did. So the na starts happening when we're not co-committed with clear agreements. And so we're saying leaders' job is to say, what is the game you want to play? And what are the rules of the game? And not think of that as something controlling, but really actually a way to create more cohesiveness so that we're all on the same page so that we can be free.
I love it. I love it. And just, a tactical question I have on that is, when and how does that get introduced and indoctrinated? And so just what I'm thinking is like, oh, I'm recruiting someone and I'm like, come join my company. And I'm like, oh, by the way, like we play hoops over here and this is what hoops is. And then first onboarding week, it's like, no. Like you got to learn these things before we talk about your functional tasks.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we're working a lot with now. I just wrote an article on like what are all the questions you could ask in the interviewing process to see how available they are for the game you want to play. But yeah, we think onboarding is really important. And ideally, whoever's starting the organization would articulate this right from the beginning, so that from the beginning, the culture gets set. This is the game we play. Let's make sure everybody knows, do you want to play this game? All interviews are asking that question. The game is very clearly named, and we have resources to support you in knowing how to do that. And, that often doesn't happen at the beginning. So at some point, a leader does decide, okay, I want to renegotiate the terms of the game and then see who wants to play. And sometimes somebody needs to leave because they realize, I don't want to play that game. That's all right. Go find the game that works for you. But ideally, it's as soon as possible. And I really am working hard with organizations on get clear in that interview process. That's the most important thing. And then that onboarding.
Nice. I love it. How do I pre-order the book?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be coming out spring of next year after the election.
Amazing. Sounds like good timing.
Yeah.
Well, Diana, this has been a lot of fun. I want to just kind of give you the opportunity to just broad strokes, like what you're up to next and how people can help you. And, I feel like maybe this is a good opportunity to ask for some help if that's something you're trying to work on.
Yeah. Well, what I would say is I really want to start working with people who are having global influence on inviting everybody to start playing more of the consciousness game, and who are interested in changing power structures that aren't working for a lot of us, and who also want to start learning to play with a lot of this that's going on more globally and nationally. So my ask is, anybody know of anybody who that sounds like, that would like to make an introduction, pass the book on to them, ask them if they want to learn more. But those are the people I'm really excited about. Those who can spread the word more broadly. Household names, for example, who can then make conscious leadership a household name. That's what I'm up to next.
I love it. Well, sounds very exciting and much needed. And so, you heard it here, folks. If you know any famous, awesome influencers in the world, send them to Diana. And I guess Twitter, you're on Twitter, your conscious leadership website. What's the best way for people to maybe get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me probably is on LinkedIn. I don't really post much on Twitter. I'm there, but LinkedIn is the place where you can find me and connect with me in my inbox there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Diana. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure just having this conversation and learning from you. And I think I speak for everyone when we say just thank you so much for your time. We're super grateful.
Okay. And are you available for an appreciation?
I love appreciation.
Okay. You are holding such a beautiful, clear vision for where you are going and who you are being. And I deeply appreciate the discipline, the devotion that you have been in yourself to come to a place that looks to me where you are really popping through the illusion of identity and ego, and being an invitation for others to start to explore that place too. And I just want you to know I'm so, so grateful that you are here on this planet doing the work that you are doing. It just warms my heart so much. And I want you to know how grateful, I really heartfully grateful I am for who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you so much. It feels really moving to hear that.
Yeah.
And
it matters to me what you're doing. It matters to me a lot.
There's just so much love to just keep going.
Yeah, that's it. You're just devoted to love. Yeah, that's a good, simple way to say it. Thank you.
Thanks.
You.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that, Diana.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.